cybersecurity. And I'm going to go back into my little back end web here, and I'm going to grab Katie. All right. Katie, do I have you? She may have stepped away to get ready. So while we wait for her to come back, don't forget, everybody, we are there. Hey, you're back. Yay, that was quick. How's it going?
It's going well. My webcam suddenly changed to my virtual webcam. I don't know why.
Oh no. in great cyber focus, it's like, oh man, cyber issues right away. Yay. Well, fantastic. Well, I'm so excited to have you on. With you being here, I will just say this real quick. So, everyone, please remember we're here for the amazing Next Gen. We have the amazing raffle prizes with every first 100 donations of $5 or more. You will also be receiving the backdoors and breaches. So, make sure you scan that QR code. We'll leave it there for about 2-3 seconds. We also have that QR code on the top right. But with that, Katie, are you excited for today's talk and getting to be on with CyberLabCon?
I am. I will say that as somebody who I like, as much as you have just pitched me as an expert, I am not an expert in all things cybersecurity. So I'm hoping to share something that I've learned for the next generation, because we're always learning. We're always
Yes.
growing, and learning never stops in cybersecurity.
Well, I'm so excited to hear your talk. So yeah, everybody, scan that QR code. Make sure you guys putting in, like I said, the first 100 get the backdoors and breaches card game. So if you've never played
It's a
that
great
before,
card
it
game.
is so amazing. It is such a fun. We bring it into our SOC and we play with our analysts, and it's always a
Did you
banger.
see that there's a PvP version now as well of backdoors and
Yes.
breaches? It's so
Mm-hmm.
cool.
No, I know we'll probably be playing it at Black Hat and DEF CON, especially inside New Village. So make sure if you're there, you come by and say hi to us. We'll have some tables playing it. But with that, I want to kick it to your slide. I will quickly push myself. We're going to do this because I think it's easier to make sure we're not in the way of your slides. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the back, and I'll be doing some cool commenting. And as you're dropping in some information, be posting stuff in. But without further ado, Katie Paxton.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to me waffle about AI. So I do not like AI. I have been pretty clear that I'm not a big AI person. I was super skeptical about AI, especially in offensive security, and I was wrong. Like, in short, I was very wrong. I really didn't understand it as well as I thought I did, and there is nothing wrong with being wrong. Like, nothing wrong with it. This is a talk I originally gave at Hacking APIs Con. I wasn't sure if I was going to give it again, though, because I was like, man, this is me just talking about how, like, the basics of AI, and like, this is stuff that I feel like everybody knows. I'm like the latecomer because I was really skeptical about AI. But I decided to give it again because I've been doing some more wannabe security research. I should say my like job title is LARPing security researcher, not because anybody is like, Katie's not a real security researcher, but because I don't think I'm a real security researcher. Can we go to the next slide? So if you don't already know who I am, my name is Dr. Katie. I'm a security advocate at a company called SemGrep. I have a PhD in AI and cybersecurity. Don't worry, I know how ironic that is. But I did get that before AI was cool, right? That was pre-ChatGPT. So you definitely know I wrote my thesis myself. But if you know who I am, it's not for anything I've done academically. It's definitely for what I do outside of my work. So I am a part-time bug bounty hunter. I specialize in API hacking and more broadly now, like interconnected systems, which often include AI. I am a speaker, a trainer. I do a lot about teaching people how to get started in cybersecurity and kind of demystifying and making security just a little bit more approachable for people who feel very overwhelmed by it. And like I said, I'm LARPing as a security researcher. And this is the story of some security research I did, because SemGrep has a security research team, but they're all too busy doing actual research. So I am the backup security researcher. Next slide, please. So one is I'm going to talk about how I got into this entire mess and the actual story I'm going to tell. Two, I'm going to be talking a bit about turning SAST findings into bug bounty reports / CVEs using Claude. I'm going to talk about reporting the vulnerabilities and what happened next. And then I'm going to tell you how am I supposed to learn from this presentation, Katie? I can't believe I came and listened to this presentation just to hear you talk about AI. And what about Mythos anyway? We'll get into it. Next slide. So this is the story of how me, AI skeptic, worked with Claude and found some vulnerabilities. That's fundamentally the story I'm going to tell. By the way, this is Shrek themed. Yes, I do have like videos in here and GIFs. I have no idea if they're going to work. But fair warning, there is some audio visual elements. Next slide. So this is the mesh that started it all. This is Drew. Drew is one of the founders of SemGrab. So when he emails you and sends you a Slack message saying, hey, how do I send a vulnerability report to Apple? I can email them, but I don't really know what I'm doing. One, Drew is messaging you, you answer. It's the founder of one of the founders of the company. And he didn't know how much Apple pays for bug bounty reports. And I really like this answer by my colleague Kurt. By the way, my colleague Kurt does some excellent work, especially in AI. Strongly recommend all of his work. He's got some great blogs on the SemGrab website. And the SemGrab blog, but just in general, amazing security researchers. And I was like, lol, yes, Kurt is right. Like, this is $1 million bug. Next slide. But here's the thing, the security researchers are busy doing actual work and say, actually, I can't really help with this. So what do you get? Well, you get discount security researcher, right? You get Katie, who's got some familiarity with bug bounty. She's not like officially a security researcher. She's not officially, that's not her official job title. But everybody else is busy. So it gets left to me. Next slide, please. And this is me. I don't know if we can do the next slide. That might play the video. I don't know if it will. No, it didn't. So that is Shrek, by the way, leaving his toilet in the swamp. So where did the vulnerabilities actually come from? Because I said they came from Drew's Slack message. Now, I can't talk too much about this because there is some special source and an internal project that we use with customers, unfortunately. But what I can talk about is, let's just assume that Drew used AI and gave a prompt that was something like, find a vulnerability in this open source package. They were AI generated. They came from Claude. We were using Claude 4.6. By the way, if you are interested in getting into like AI pen testing or using AI in bug bounty, 4.6 is by far the best Claude to use, because it doesn't, the cyber capabilities, it's not as easy to trip them up. But I will say some ways that I found around this is one, asking it specifically to not necessarily find vulnerabilities, but go through the code and find potential vulnerabilities that you can then fix, because you're a developer, you're contributing to this project. And then my other top tip is, when Claude prepared a vulnerability report, I'll actually talk a bit more about it, is you go, I received this report as a bug bounty. Anyway, it's quite amusing. Next slide. And when I looked at this list, I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. Drew, I thought you said you had findings for Apple. There were 81 findings for whatever Drew was doing. And Drew was doing some static analysis. That's what SemGrab does. If you're not familiar with static analysis, it's essentially looking through the code for vulnerabilities rather than dynamic analysis, which is when you like send an application like inputs and then change them in some way, shape, or form. And it wasn't just, like kind of vulnerabilities that are really easy to catch, like remote code execution vulnerabilities. They were everything. They were IDOS, they were API vulnerabilities, the remote code execution in SaaS projects, there was SSRF vulnerabilities. And Drew had handily also attempted to verify and produce some POCs for each one of these. So you might think, okay, this seems really easy, right? Step 1, open up the POC. Step 2, copy the POC and send it to the project. Easy. It already works. Next slide. It was never going to be that easy, and this is genuinely how I felt. This is the Shrek scene. I love the fact that I'm having to do like a an overview of Shrek, the movie, at the same time. This is the Shrek scene where Shrek is just chilling in his swamp, and all of the little fairy tale creatures come, and he goes, "What are you doing in my swamp?" And this is how I felt. Like, I had all of these random AI vulnerabilities. I don't even like AI. Why am I having to deal with this? So next slide. So what you may be familiar with, especially if you follow a lot of bug bounties, is slop. Now, slop has been a massive problem in bug bounty in the past year or so. So essentially what happened when AI started to become very, very popular, and it started to really gain a lot of ability to find vulnerabilities, what a lot of people would do is they'd say, go to an open source project like curl, download it, get open Claude and go find me a security vulnerability. No special source, just find me a security vulnerability. And what would happen is Claude would give back these really really well hallucinated vulnerabilities, because it would be code that like fathomably could exist. It wasn't like complete and utter BS, kind of this code really obviously doesn't exist, or it was code that did exist, or it's code that used to exist but now doesn't. And but at the point it needed a human to actually go through that report and verify that, because it looks really convincing. It looks exactly like a genuine vulnerability. And the reason why this happens with LLMs is that they want to please you. They really want you to be helpful to you. And so if they don't find anything, they're still going to be helpful by telling you they're being helpful. They will straight up lie to you. And what happened in Curl's case, Curl was really unique because they actually disclose every single vulnerability report they get, whether or not that's a valid vulnerability report, whether that's maybe a vulnerability but they're choosing not to fix it because it's not a security issue, for example, it's maybe just a regular bug, or it's something that like users of Curl have to keep in mind. Like it's not like an insecure default, but it's a, hey, you can use curl in this dangerous way. And so they report all of them. So there's some really interesting data, and they actually spoke up about this first, which is that their HackerOne program was being absolutely, literally just slop. Everything was slop. All the vulnerability reports were slop. They went from getting like really high quality reports to basically getting absolute garbage. They ended up turning off their HackerOne bug bounty because they were getting like so much additional work for zero additional security. And when I was looking at these findings from AI and I saw the fact they had a POC associated with them, I was really thinking about this problem, because as somebody who is involved in bug bounty, you know, I've also seen my reports take forever to get triaged because there is so many vulnerabilities in the queue. I've had situations where like I've had a real vulnerability, but for whatever reason it can't be reproduced, so it ends up kind of falling to the bottom of the triage line, and then no one ever really looks at it. However, on the same kind of coin here, Curl actually got early access to Mythos as part of the kind of what's called a Glasswing project that Anthropic was doing with a few like well-known cybersecurity companies. And Mythos actually found a vulnerability in Curl, but just one vulnerability in Curl, which is really interesting because especially if you looked at the marketing around Mythos and some of the results it got from other projects, there were a lot more than just one vulnerability it found. And by the way, these two blogs are really interesting to see the dichotomy of where AI and cybersecurity, particularly in vulnerability finding, is at the moment, where you've got an awful lot of slop, but there are models that are able to find really good stuff. And when I was looking at these, I was like, man, I don't want to be part of the slot problem. I can't just report these. I need to verify them, trust but verify. Next slide. So how do you actually report a vulnerability to a project? Well, step one is to confirm the vulnerability actually exists. As we just mentioned, that's important. Step two, find the security contact. So that could be a bug bounty program, that could be a security at email, that could be a VDP disclosure. You give them your step one, the steps to reproduce the vulnerability. You explain the impact of the finding in context to their software and business. You press send, you obviously get ignored, and then you resort to random people who work there. You won't be thinking, Katie, that seems kind of defeatist. Don't you think people care about security? No. Quite often when you report security findings, particularly if they don't have a bug bounty program or vulnerability disclosure process, it takes some work to actually get those vulnerabilities fixed, and it's a huge problem in security research. By the way, shout out to my friend Casey John Ellis, who founded BugCrowd. He has founded disclose.io. If you're ever struggling to find a security contact and actually disclose a vulnerability responsibly, it's a great tool. So step one is, of course, the most important here. I'm dealing with AI findings. I need to verify they actually exist. Next slide. Next slide. So this is one of these findings. So this affected redash, get redash, and it was a path traversal to RCE script runner. And you can see it's been fully verified. And you can see here all of the user supplied query text run, bunch of SAST, and it tells us what to do. Look at the code. This, by the way, is a false positive. This is not a real finding. Because while there is an RCE, when you go and you look into this, you realize it is intentionally insecure. So a lot of these findings were findings where this was an intended feature of this particular library, not security problems. A lot of applications allow you to do insecure things. Just responding to folks, I cannot see any movement, any place to move my slides. Just FYI. Sorry. Next slide. Sorry. So, okay, quick primer on SaaS so we can actually start to understand this. So in SaaS, we have these really three big concepts. The first is sources, the second is sinks, and the third is taint. These all sound super technical and very cybery. They're really not. So a source is just where it's a function in an application where untrusted data enters it. So this could be like a HTTP request header or a parameter or a form field or an environment variable or a database read. These are just places user input comes from. And sinks is what happens downstream. So sinks are functions where dangerous operations happen. So this is things like an exec, right? This could be where SQL queries are being run directly. This could be where HTML is rendered. So the source is where bad data comes from, and the sink is where it ends up. And when we talk about the idea of traveling from a source to a sink, this is called taint. This is the contamination which travels from these inputs to where it goes to a dangerous function. And taint analysis is the kind of process of tracking this taint through all of this. So what SaaS does is not so much go through code, find like regex, right, where you're using it. It's more about understanding how data flows from untrustworthy sources to dangerous actions. And this happens across files. It can happen from libraries. It can happen through multiple projects. There's a bunch of different ways this taint can happen, but this is primarily what we're doing in SaaS. When we get a result like this, what we're saying is, hey, there is a source. If we could go back to the last slide. So where it says source, user supplied query text, this is saying, hey, this is where, in this case, on post API query results, and then the query here, this is where we are getting some user input. It's then saying it's going to script.py on line 70, then it's going to run query on line 72, then it's calling a function called query to script path, then it's going on line 9 to an OS path join, blah, 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 until it gets to the very bottom here where it says sync subprocess.check output script shell. This is essentially telling us these are the files in which we have to travel through in order to go from this post request to API/query results to the output of this, which is the subprocess check output and then script OS path join. Next slide. And the next slide. So to break it down, this is what we're looking at. So one, our source is an API request that we have to make. So we need to make a post request to API/query results, and we need to supply query, and then we need to supply some data here. Here you can see we're doing like just a regular bash command, but in theory we could put anything here. The orange path is showing us the path in which this input takes through the application. So you can see this kind of hits a bunch of different files. And this, by the way, is what makes static analysis very different from dynamic analysis, where in dynamic analysis, we have an input and we see a result and we try to infer something about that process. Instead, we kind of work the other way around. We have some kind of process and we have to infer what we think the input and the result should be. And then we can see in the purple, this is where that actually, that code ends up, right? So when I'm reading these, this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking for, what do I have to do to cause this? I don't really care about the orange because I kind of got my start in bug bounty hunting. So we don't really care about the actual code. And then I want to be able to get to this last bit of code. Next slide, please. So again, we need to confirm that this vulnerability is real and not a false positive. Like I said, this one, as an example, was a false positive because it's something the application just allowed you to do. It was just insecure, but you've got to, if you are setting this up, it makes a lot more sense. Next slide. So how are my colleagues figuring out, how do we actually verify these? Well, my colleagues are experts in SAST and they are experts in code security. So what they do is they read the code and go, yes, looks legit, very complicated flow, needs verification, but this looks legit. I am not my colleagues. I work in marketing. The last time I read production code when I was a developer in 2017. I am a bug bounty hunter though. So while they can just define the answer from their incredibly intelligent brains, we need to work for it. Next slide. So this is where I said that my approach to hacking was very different to my colleagues because they can just read the code. I have to start up the application and I'm like, but where did this code actually come from? Where am I supposed to put this? Where's the payload? How do I configure this random application? I've never used this before. What on earth is redash? Next slide. So how do I turn SAST into a bug bounty problem? Next slide. I'm going to need some help. I am not that egotistical to think I am the world's best hacker and I can do everything. I'm going to need some help. So I turn to ever reliable donkey, Claude. So I get Claude to download, configure, and set up each package as a Docker container. So it's ready for me to test. So that way I don't have to read any documentations. Then I want Claude to look through the documentation, look at the code and just tell me where to put it. And then write me a POC that should work, or at least that I can iterate on. So I can at least quickly check if it's a real vulnerability. Next slide. So this was my Docker setup. My first prompt was like set up redash in Docker, please. By the way, I always say please to my AI agents. I don't know why. It makes me very uncomfortable to not say please, though I have since removed the please down to PLS. So they always get a please when I am when I'm asking them to do something. But eventually, I realized I have to iterate on this. Like, how do you find the right image? Make sure it's at the correct version. Make sure it's the same version as the GitHub repository is. And then at the very end, actually hand it off to the user. Next slide. And actually, surprisingly, it worked well. I was not expecting this to work this well. And for me, like, this was a big kind of mindset shift for me, where I was like, AI is useless, AI is pointless. But when I was then kind of in this situation where I was looking at hundreds of, like, 81 vulnerabilities that I had to confirm, I was like, okay, right, I need to automate at least some of this, because otherwise I'm going to go insane. It took a lot of back and forth, especially initially. Like, oh, I can log in, but wrong email or password. I'm in, what next? Initially, I didn't actually use Docker. I just had it set it up locally. But honestly, this was a huge mistake. The version is really important, and Docker builds are not necessarily the current source on GitHub. But what happened was you couldn't trust Claude to do anything. There was always so much iteration. And I always needed to have some kind of output that I could actually give back to Claude, that I realized that there was no way that I was going to be able to do this like on my local machine by just pulling in the GitHub source. Even in cases where the GitHub, the Docker image wasn't the same version, I still had it set up a Docker image, because then it was really easy to turn it off as well. Next slide. And my whole goal here was essentially to get a URL. So the POC evolved over time. My initial prompt was, give me a manual test plan for this finding, and I pasted the result. It definitely evolved over time, though. And I'd be honest, I had some frustration with Claude, mainly because it kept on doing the static analysis. It's like, I am not smart enough to know how static analysis works. I can't read this code, Claude. I need the dumb version. Give me the dumb version. Stop reading the source file. But eventually, it did work. Eventually, I was able to get it to actually give me a test plan and break it down into dumb little steps for my dumb little brain. Next slide. So here is some of the back and forth, and this is for an actual finding, which is why some of it is very pixelated. And it took a lot of back and forth. Like, AI cannot do this stuff the first time. I never found that doing like /goal really actually helped that much. I ended up turning it into more of like a Socratic dialogue, very academic. I ended up having a conversation to be like, okay, this is what's happening, this is the input. You are gonna, if you are using AI in this way, you are gonna have to like have a lot of back and forth, particularly when I was trying to get it to like actually read the documentation the application provided instead of a guessing. And I had to insist a lot on, I need to use UI and burp, not curl, not the CLI. I need burp. I need like dumb people instructions. But honestly, this is again what really surprised me, because it was really good at writing POCs, like with my help. And especially for things that I'm not that experienced in, I do a lot of API testing. So I'm very familiar with access control vulnerabilities. I'm very familiar with vulnerabilities around things like authentication. I'm not that familiar with things like SSRF or remote code execution type vulnerabilities, command injection. The AI really made up for it. Like, because I knew at least enough to know when AI was kind of just like hallucinating, I was actually able to get this fairly quickly. And I used it a lot as a learning experience for me as well. In fact, I don't know if anybody has been following Twitter today, but you may know that there was a CVE that was kind of released last night, for me anyway, yesterday evening, if you're in the US, that affected WordPress. And I would like, I put my hands up. I did not know how to do remote code execution before I started this project that I'm talking about. And I actually took like one of the tools that was used in this analysis, and I actually did that on WordPress, and I was able to turn that into the like full remote code execution vulnerability like yesterday and earlier today. So you can actually also learn in part in this as well. I think it's important you don't just let AI take the wheel and you kind of stress on things like, I want to use the UI, this is how I understand, this is how I learn. But you can actually use this for learning. Next slide, please. And you're probably thinking from this, Katie, this is all going very well. Why were you anti-AI? The most frustrating thing, one is the fact you kept doing your static analysis. Two was AI was so bad at understanding whether or not something was intended functionality. Something could have been very clearly labeled as very dangerous. Do not use this. Never use this. And Claude would still insist that it's a vulnerability. And so my main function in this loop that I was having with Claude was, hey, is this actually intended, or is this a genuine vulnerability? And second of all, is this realistically exploitable? And I find this really interesting because I was having a conversation with one of my colleagues at the same time as well. And we were chatting about I was saying, oh, I don't think I'm going to report this because it's not realistically exploitable, because in bug bounty hunting, that's the bar. And he's like, oh no, we should report it because it's a vulnerable function. It doesn't matter if it's realistically exploitable, which I thought was an interesting kind of discussion around like what counts as a security vulnerability as well. So next slide. So here are some example false positives. Unfortunately, this originally had animations. Like I see my animations are completely gone. But in this example, an admin user could put an SQL injection into the database. But because they were already an admin, it's not a vulnerability. They could have done that anyway. They already have access to all the data. There's nothing gained from doing that. And even though, AI had this like really strong kind of, this is a vulnerability, I had to push back quite a lot. And I had this like phase 3 in my prompt that would go and be like, if I say it is not a vulnerability, stop telling me it's a vulnerability. Do not re-explain it. Diagnose a specific issue. If I'm understanding it incorrectly, but if I'm telling you this is not a vulnerability, please just listen to me. Next slide. And at this point, I'd got an AI to do everything else. I thought, I'm not writing the report myself. While I added it and I was like, I can't be bothered to do any of this, I really decided not to use it because I found that one, it did a really poor job of explaining vulnerabilities, and two, I wasn't learning anything. Like I was finding all these vulnerabilities, but I wasn't like taking into my brain like what that vulnerability meant, why it occurred. So I didn't end up like using my brain at all, except for to tell AI off. So for me, while I did have this, honestly, the only time I used this was actually to create some MD files that I could review for this talk. Next slide. So reporting the vulnerabilities. What happened when I started to report these? Next slide. This might be a Shrek video. Next slide. Okay, I'm actually not done with reporting these. I actually still have a long way to go to actually triage these original 81 findings from Drew. And some of them are like true positives. Some of them are false positives, but they're false positives in the sense that like this is intended functionality. So they're not really false positives, they're true positives, but just not real vulnerabilities. I've still got 41 of these still to go through, but I have reported some of them. Next slide. So here's how it's going. I submitted this finding to cal.com, and then the day after, they announced that they were closing their open source because people were finding security vulnerabilities in their project. So that's how well this is going. 2 days after I submit the findings, they kill it. I never heard back. I assume that they've probably fixed it, but I don't know. Next slide, please. But Katie, I don't have a guy called Drew sending me findings for free. How am I supposed to find these bugs? And how am I supposed to use AI? Don't worry, I got you. Next slide. There is a bunch of different ways you can find bugs. And this is my kind of like 3-step process. One is find some open source projects. There's a lot of open source projects that if you do not submit slop to, and you submit findings that you've actually used your human eyeballs and your human brain to analyze and make sure is real, they actually do want to hear from people who found security vulnerabilities. Now, ideally, do this with security disclosures that are already in place. Choose projects that won't sue you and that have some kind of process in place. And also, as like a tip, a lot of these vulnerabilities were found in like data apps. So like dashboard, low code, no code, where you can just like easily pull together a bunch of different data sources and produce some kind of artifact, like a report, like a dashboard. They were primarily what the AI found issues in. 2 is you can use SaaS tools. You can use security review in something like Claude. There are other tools that aren't SemGrep as well. There are open source tools that compete with SemGrep. A lot of tools like SemGrep have open source rules that you can just point at a project. You can download a set of these rules and ask LLM to use it to find vulnerabilities. Now, the kind of caveat here is a lot of the findings in this were SSRF, remote code execution, and IDOR. So if you're not familiar with those vulnerabilities already, that's where I would start as being kind of good places if you are going to have one of these workflows that has you working with AI. And 3 is to use this skill. So I have published this skill on my GitHub, and I'm going to paste that. So my keyboard has decided to stop working. That's great. I think it's out of battery. Sorry, folks. This is how you know it's live, though, and you know that the right, there we go. GitHub. I should have really done doing this before this slipstream, but there you go. I'm going to stick it in Ginger Hacker's chat. You can use this skill. It's completely free. Feel free to use it. This is the skill that I was using to verify all these findings. So what I had it do was get a project, have it set it up for me. So that's like part... you can see like it has like your role. Then it's got phase 1, which is the Docker setup, phase 2, which is the initial POC, and then it's got the kind of write-up. Again, the write-up, not that useful. Everything else, though, very good. Like using AI for that. Next slide. And this is the skill. I've got a QR code. This QR code is definitely safe. My only request is that if you use this skill and you find a bug that you then get a bounty for, please do donate it. It would be great to be able to have more folks come and be able to take advantage of training and start their careers in cyber. And that's really the goal of this conference. Next slide. So am I a believer in AI? AI is an onion. I think the more you get into AI, the more you realize that AI isn't really what makes AI good. What really makes AI good is the squishy human at the center of it. AI alone is never going to find vulnerabilities, right? It doesn't matter how many mythos you have, you still need a human to go in and understand the context in which an application is working. So, am I a believer? Honestly, I'm still not a big fan of AI. I definitely use it more now in my kind of security research slash bug bounty. But I do think this project kind of changed my mind a lot. I think that while I am a believer, I'm like very specific, narrow, qualified, like lots of asterisks at the end. I think really where AI has a lot of value in kind of bug bounty and security research is kind of as a lead generator to give you ideas of what to do. I don't think AI as autonomous security researcher works, to be honest. And maybe this is harness related, and I just don't have the right harness, or I'm not using the right mod. Maybe I fully accept that I do not know any like most stuff about AI. Like I said, I'm very new to using this for this, but I think the workflow that I'm using and that I'm kind of creating for myself now is not valuable because of AI. It's valuable because I'm there thinking about this and like using my experience behind it. And I think at the core of any AI hacking methodology always needs to be a human. The human executes, verifies AI steps, but the more important role that humans play is applying that context, that deployment context, that intent. Was this intended functionality? Understanding the impact of a finding, going, yeah, I could see these people really care about this. And to use an example again from earlier today, when I was looking at this WordPress finding, when I sent the finding first to AI very confidently told me this was a false positive, that this was not a vulnerability, that the report was overblown, and that it was complete hype and no speculation, and there was no way the POC would work. And then it took me looking at it and going, oh, I need more than one of these. Like the AI is doing one, I need more than one of them to get the exploit to work. So while again, I think that AI can be a very helpful tool, you still got to have the squishy human center. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening to me yak about AI. Happy to take any questions. Oh, I should say, this is the final scene of Shrek where it plays I'm a Believer, and it's the marriage ceremony. Now you've watched at least all of Shrek 1. Here's how you can find me over the internet.
Katie, I will not lie. I love your Shrek themed presentation as well. And I think almost on top of the amazing conversation, your breakdown of the videos that didn't play, like, and no, this is what happened. Like, what are you doing in the swamp? It was just, I heard it in my head and it was super funny.
It's
So
great.
this was
It's like
amazing and fantastic.
when the technology fails, right? I'm thinking about it now. I picked like a kind of outdoory background because it's actually quite sunny here today. And I was like, oh, it's nice in nature. I should have picked a swamp. I should have just picked something from Shrek.
Well, we have some time for some questions before we kick you loose. So I guess my first question, Katie, is has this kind of always been a passion? And I honestly know leveraging and using AI because it's the big hype right now. It's the new buzzword for all companies, even. And I agree with you where it's like there's some pros I think into it, but I think there's also still a lot of cons. And having that human in the middle is a huge important piece of it. What really drove you to kind of get into this, leveraging it to help you kind of do these bug bounties? Was it specifically that
Oh,
message from
panic.
Drew?
It's because the founder of the company sent me a Slack message and asked me to do it. And I was like, he's the founder of the company. And I realized there was no way I was going to be able to do that and all the other work I had to do. So I used to be a lecturer at a university, like a professor, and I would always have students who would panic and then turn to AI. So I did the same thing they did. I panicked and I turned to AI in a time of need. And isn't that just representational of all of us? Now I do it with a bit more intention though. Like I learned a lot from doing this. I did this like a few months ago. So I have learned a lot more now. And the way I use Claude hasn't really changed, but it's less panicked now. Now I'm like, I
Yeah.
wonder what Claude would say in this situation, or I wonder what I'm missing, or I wonder what I don't know about. And the questions I ask Claude have also changed as well. It's very much me trying to better my understanding than to try and skip my understanding to just get Claude to produce a POC.
So I have a few questions here coming in through chat. Have you gone to the Shrek play?
I have not, but you know what? I have seen the advertisement for it in London. I really wanted to go. There was a HackerOne live event that was happening the same week as the Shrek play, and I was very desperate. But this was many years ago now.
All right, I have another one here saying, Katie, congrats on the truck. How are you going to make it look different from the black cab?
Okay, for everybody else,
I was like,
I had a week
I don't know
off.
the context.
The context is I had a week off of work, and my brain was like, I'm so security pilled now that I can't like take a week off of work without actually taking a week off of work. So I got very interested in cars, specifically niche Japanese cars, because I like how boxy they look. And I found out about this car. It's called a BB Open Deck. It's basically a pickup truck that is tiny. It's like a K car size pickup truck. The truck bed is like 3 feet. It's this tiny truck. It's great. And I became obsessed with it. And so I bought one. I've never bought a car.
I'm gonna
before.
drop an image. I just
yeah,
found it.
I feel like everyone should see the BB Open Deck.
That is awesome.
Yeah, but they come in yellow. Like the default color is yellow, and I've got a black one. But I'm gonna get it resprayed yellow. I think resprayed or maybe wrapped. I don't know. It depends on budget. Hey, that's the car I bought as well. That's the actual car. That
oh my gosh, is it really?
Yeah. Shout out the Car Warehouse. Fantastic guys. They import cars into the UK from Japan.
Wow, that's actually really cool. Yeah, I saw that. That is a funny looking truck. That borderline wants me to almost look into that of how I get that to the US. That is
well, you know funny. What? So they turned 25 years old. This is why this truck is so hard. It turned 25 years old this year, so they can now be imported into the US. So a bunch of Americans are buying them, and I had to fight an American for this truck. Somebody else. It was manufactured in November, so they had to wait until November so they could import it into the. Anyway, this is very. I'm getting into car hacking. That's my next. My next car. I've literally got a box full of car hacking supplies.
Oh, that's so
quite
cool.
An old car as well. It reminds you can do things. You can. I asked Claude. Claude helped me.
No, I mean the thing is, like with AI coming more and more into the day in life of every job that you can probably think of, no matter if it's even physical security of them using drones to help them fly around and find stuff. It's just like make it your helper assistant and make your job easier. I don't think there's any issues with that. We're unable to see it, Ginger Hacker. Oh, okay. I'll find a way to share that link in the video. Let me see. Okay, we'll find ways because it's definitely. If you also just look up the BB Open Deck, here I'll drop this. This is what I did to find it. Just BB Open Deck, and if you go to Google and type that in, you will quickly find the truck we were talking about. It is very interesting and pretty cool, actually. But Katie, a few more questions for you. So, any plans on making it to Black Hat or DEF CON in Vegas this year?
Hell yeah! I'm gonna be at B-Sides Las Vegas representing SEMGRAP. Nice. Come down to the booth. I have some really cool stickers that I'm working on for work. And if people show up, it means that I'll get credit at work for doing them. I'm also going to be at Black Hat as well. I will also be representing SEMGRAP. And I will also be at DEF CON, but I'm doing some talks at DEF CON. I'm going to be at the IoT Village talking about e-reader hacking. And I'm going to talk about this thing. This is an XT X4, which is a ESP32 based e-reader. I'm going to explain how to start developing for it. I'm talking about jailbreaking Kindles. I'm going to be at the Game Hacking Village doing a talk about Habbo Hotel and private server emulation. And I'm going to be at the Bug Bounty Village talking more about AI slop and how we turn bug bounty reports into SEMGRAP rules to help reduce slop. So lots of talks at DEF CON.
Okay, a few more questions coming in. What inspired you to do this research? I think you kind of answered that one already. It was the panic message from your boss.
Very much that, but I think the reason why I'm still doing it, which might be a more interesting question, is that when I initially joined SEMGRAP, I'm not gonna lie. I totally did not understand what static analysis was. I totally
Okay.
thought it was regex expressions over code, and I was like, "This is like." I wasn't like in a point where I just didn't really understand it. Right? So like I knew it was important. I knew that lots of customers liked it. I knew that it's important for security research, but I don't think I really understood how it worked until I worked at SemGrep. And for me, like, I don't like not knowing things. I really want to be the kind of person who understands how systems come together. So, what really motivates me to continue on doing this is that I really enjoy like getting better at things like static code analysis. Like, I've learned a ton about how to take a SAS like report, this taint analysis, and turn it into a vulnerability. And before, I didn't really know how to do that, and I'm getting better and better, and I can see myself improving and really understanding. And I just find that I enjoy my job a lot more. I feel more informed, and that's really why I keep going. And I think AI is really
Oh,
helpful
awesome.
for that.
No, very cool. Well, I'm going to be also at all three, so I'm definitely going to make sure I come by and say hi.
Please
And
do.
also make sure I hand you one of our awesome Ginger Hacker Initiative stickers.
I will
And
make sure you get
this
good
this has
swag.
been such a oh yay! Yeah, this has been I've loved this talk. I think so far it's so early in the day, but definitely one of my favorite talks so far. So Katie, thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna make our next pivot to, or hopefully our next presenter if they get in here soon. But my last question for you before I kick you loose, what's your final advice to someone maybe trying to break into this field specifically?
Ooh, I would say learn stuff broadly. I think the biggest mistake you can make in cybersecurity as a whole is thinking that um, you only need to know like one narrow subset. You will be shocked at how general cybersecurity is. Like, you have to quickly become somebody who's okay reading code. You have to quickly become somebody who's okay jumping into Mmap and running a port scan and understanding it. You need to be someone who's really like happy to go and uh, go to a CEO and say, hey, we've got a security problem here. You end up becoming like this kind of jack of all trades. And I think the biggest mistake you can make is saying, that's not my job. Like, my job is X, Y, and Z, and that's it. I think
Mm-hmm.
if you want to get into cybersecurity, you've got to like get over the idea that your job is a certain thing, because and even this is outside of AI as well, right? This is just in general,
Yeah.
cybersecurity is really broad. And at the end of the day, there is so much here, and I think that's great because you can also kind of explore what actually interests you. But I think you've got to learn broadly. You've got to be prepared to put in the work, and sometimes you're going to find yourself speaking to Claude about Toyota parts to figure out how you can hack your car, and that is the beauty of infosec.
All right, Katie, this was such an amazing talk. I'm so excited. I'm so excited we have to have you on. And no, we will see you here in the next under 30 days at B-Sides Vegas, Black Hat, and DEF
Oh,
CON. So
don't
please
remind
make sure
me.
to say, please make
Panic
sure you get swing by and say hi. Yes, it's going to be organized chaos.
for
Well,
sure.
Katie, I'm going to let you get some time back in your day. But yeah, thank you guys so much for staying tuned. And Katie, I'm going to go ahead and push you back on the back end channel, and we will talk later. All right, everybody. Well, we are kind of still waiting for our next presenter. So while we are filling that gap, I'm going to throw up some QR codes real quick and quickly fill in some holes. So as you guys remembered, we are here for an amazing reason today, and that is to support the next gen